Hello, folks. Thank you for listening to Mountain Mule Media, Connecting Montana. I'm your host, Tim Baldwin. This podcast is a production of Mountain Mule Transportation. It was created to help locals and travelers connect more deeply with the businesses and people who make Montana such an incredible place to live and visit. In each episode, I sit down with Montana business owners and community leaders to hear the story behind their work, how they got started, what they've built, and how they help create a better experience for both residents and visitors. If you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe on your favorite platform. And if you use any of the services or businesses you hear about here, let them know you heard about them from Mountain Mule. And when you need private transportation with Montana's hospitality, please think of Mountain Mule Transportation. Thank you for your support, and I hope you enjoy the show as we keep connecting Montana. Evan, thanks for being here.
Gladly.
Tell me about Yellowstone Wildlife and what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Evan Stout, and I own and operate Yellowstone Wildlife Guide Company. It's a very small wildlife guiding outfit, taking people in the park for wildlife watching tours and photography. We used to run backpacking and fly fishing, which I handled all of, but as my time gets thinner, I had to drop those from the company.
And you're based out of Gardiner?
I'm based out of Gardiner, yep.
Okay. So if somebody books a trip with you, they'll meet you in Gardiner, go from there. Is that generally how it works?
Yep. And sometimes we'll meet people in the park, meet them at any of the visitor centers or something, or up in Paradise Valley. But yeah, for the most part, meet early in the morning in Gardiner, head into the park, usually before sunrise, see what we can see, and generally done by midday.
Okay. Do you ever do multi-day stuff with anyone? Okay.
Yep. I get a lot of my photographers, especially in the winter, come with some pretty often lofty photography goals.
Yep.
And so we'll take multi-days to try to get, whatever it is they're looking for.
So it just depends on what kind of wildlife they're after.
Yeah. And I like to kind of specialize away from just the standard run-of-the-mill, go look at a wolf, go look at a bear through a spotting scope. So I have a lot of clients who have often weird requests, or very specialized requests, but that's kind of how I like it.
Okay, that's kind of what I was going to ask you. Is there anything you do specialize in, or what they're looking for?
Yeah, I do an incredible amount of business of folks who want to see owls of all different varieties. Everything from great horns, great grays, pygmies, saw-whets, boreals, long-eared, short-eared, all the owls.
Okay. And photography, that's just they just want to get photography done. You're taking them where anything is.
Yeah, where I think we have the best chance for them to get their shot.
Okay.
Yep.
How about seasonality? You're year-round?
Yeah, we operate year-round. There's some natural lulls in visitation to Yellowstone, especially when in the fall and in the spring when the roads are closed to Old Faithful. When you can't get on a snow coach and you can't drive, it's usually pretty slow, so we tend to take those months off. But otherwise, all through the summer, we kind of are starting right now. It's the middle of May, and we start this week with, I think we have 20 some odd days in a row of trips on the books.
Oh, wow.
And then the winter it's a little more sporadic, but it usually comes in bigger bites. So we'll get 4 or 5 day trips.
Yep. And you said it's yourself and how many other guides?
Kind of 1.5. I've got another guide who works full time, and then a third guide, other than me, who kind of fills in as we need her.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's just depending on how busy you are. And
getting a pinch, need a day off here or there or whatever.
How booked out are you for the summer? Do you have spaces for people?
Yeah, I'm pretty close to just shutting it down. I definitely have some availability still on my calendar, but I'm in a place personally and with my business where I'm not trying to sell every single day all summer long.
Yep.
The reality is I'd rather have a really busy January and February than a really busy July and August.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
When people book with you, what do you recommend? How do they get the best out of this experience? Do they bring lunch? What do they bring? What don't they bring?
Yeah, so we provide everything you'll need to be comfortable for the day, right? We have a nice SUV. We've got really nice Swarovski optics all the way around. We bring food and drink and coffee and tea. We'll make sure you're comfortable. I think the biggest thing is, I have a saying that Yellowstone provides for those who appreciate. Which means if you can appreciate whatever you see, you're going to have a great day. I think where people set them up for pitfalls are they get into this mindset of like, well, I paid all this money for the tour. I came halfway around the world. I'm waking up at 3:30 in the morning to go do this. I better see a damn wolf.
Yeah.
And you may or may not see the wolf that day. Usually we do, but you're not guaranteed. None of that stuff's guaranteed. But who knows what else you might see that's amazing, right? Like I was in the park 2 days ago, and I witnessed 3 different bison give birth.
Oh, wow.
In 3 different places in the park,
Very
all
cool.
in the same day within an 8-hour period. And so, yeah, the people I were with wanted to see bears and wolves, and we saw those too. But their highlight of their day was getting to see that happen. And it's keeping that open mind and just being open to appreciating whatever shows up in front of you.
Yeah. I feel like I've asked this question before, but the bison are only calving once a year.
Once a year, yep.
Every spring. Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, I don't know if I told you this, but I grew up on a dairy farm, so
Okay.
I'm used to cows calving year
Sure.
round, but they're on the whitetail elk schedule.
Yeah.
What's the max amount of people you can do in a group?
I try not to do more than 5.
Okay.
Occasionally I'll deal with groups if we have like a big family reunion or some photography group or something. I have ways to facilitate, bigger groups. I think I'm taking out a group of 27 later
Okay.
this summer. So I can make it work, but that's definitely not my jam,
Okay. And then you'll just get multiple guides and multiple vehicles for that.
Yep. It will. Yeah. Just get some Sprinter vans, rent some Sprinter vans, get all my guides on staff.
Cool.
So
a typical day is you kind of base it around what they want to see.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. It's, getting in the vehicle first thing in the morning, usually in the dark. One of my very first questions is what are you most hopeful to see today?
Yeah.
And then I'll base my day off their answer.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, you got to get up early in the summertime if you want to see.
Super early.
I mean, really year round, but the summertime those animals are not moving when it gets hot.
No, and there's a little bit of a expiration time on it too, right? Like those beautiful summer days where we all think, man, it's gorgeous out here, and it's 85 degrees by 9 o'clock in the morning. When we get up for sunrise, you've got an hour, maybe 2, to go get those more high ticket, grizzly bears and wolves to get them in view, or they're going into the trees to bed down. And
you said you don't do anything overnight with anyone?
Not anymore. No, I used to do backpacking trips, but I'll do like multi-days.
Okay.
So like we've got a 4-day photography workshop coming up here at the end of the month.
Oh, cool.
So that's all booked through me as like a single package. But yeah, we go back to hotels in the evening in Gardiner.
So anyone ideally for them, their best case is to lodge somewhere in Gardiner, so they're not driving through Paradise Valley.
Yep. Yeah, totally.
Morning,
yeah. If you can stay in Gardiner, that's ideal. Gardiner Basin even works. Or staying in the park.
Mm-hmm.
Stay in Mammoth Canyon, any of those places. We will come down and pick people up at like the Canyon Visitor Center.
Yep.
So.
And you said you usually bring meals for them for lunch?
Yeah, we bring breakfast and snacks for
Okay.
the morning. Yeah, because we're done by about 1 p.m. most days.
Yeah.
So, coffee, tea, cocoa, all the muffins and croissants and stuff like that in the morning, and then just a bunch of healthy snacks. Yeah. I try not to stop and eat.
Yeah.
Like, all right, we're all going to sit down for an hour and a half at a picnic area. I'd rather keep moving and so we have snacks that we just keep pushing on to people, keep them grazing all day.
Yeah, and I guess when you get to 1 o'clock, there's not a lot going on. I mean, wildlife other than a lot of traffic. And
exactly.
People, yeah.
It's funny, on your way out, it's 11:30 noontime, and we're starting to make our way back towards Gardiner, and it's just a steady stream of cars coming in, and I call them the bacon and eggs crowd.
Yeah.
And we've had a great day. Usually by then my clients are satiated and ready to take a siesta, and there's all these people coming in, and they're like, "Where are all the wolves?" And so, 6 hours ago they were right there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Anything else you could think of that just helps prepare people better for a trip, whether it's with you or not with you?
Yeah, it's so cliche, but it's also very true. The Park Service has the pack your patience messaging campaign going, and I think I would expect that this summer that's going to be more important than ever.
Yeah.
We're seeing, staffing numbers are up in the air right now. Funding for resources and resource protection is kind of up in the air, and it looks like we're gearing up for another busy summer. So when those two things collide, it's like I was raised on the personal responsibility.
Yep.
If you're going to go visit this area, it's your job to make sure you're not affecting anybody else's visit, you're not ruining the resource, and you're leaving it maybe a little better than you found it. And I just wish that message could be heard and received to everybody who comes to Yellowstone.
Yeah. I guess unfortunately it falls on deaf ears a lot too.
It does. Yeah. It does a lot, you know, and you don't have to be in the park very long to start seeing that behavior. Yeah. Right.
How'd you get into this?
I've always wanted to guide. I have guided pretty much my whole adult life. You know, I went to a small school back in Maine and graduated with a degree in outdoor leadership, and I'm a Knowles alumni. And pretty much right after college, started guiding. Moved out west, lived in Arizona for a while, doing conservation work there in the national parks. Moved to California, worked for a company that sent me all over North America. And so I was kind of living that life of, you know, busy guide seasons and then travel in the off season and run out of money and go back to guiding and doing that over and over and over. And then about a decade ago, I decided I wanted to just live in Yellowstone. I'd been here guiding for that previous company before they'd sent me up here for a few summers. And just wanted to live somewhere. Kind of got sick of the movement, the travel, of the constant for over a decade. And so, in 2015, I called a buddy up in Gardiner, and I was like, hey, man, I think I want to move to Gardiner and start guiding in the park. And he's like, cool, come on up. You have a job.
Awesome.
That was that.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Anything that what in this business surprises you most, or just being in the park every day, or, you know, from dealing with the people?
Yeah, you know, I think, I can answer that a couple ways. I think if you're a good guide, if you're doing it right, in my opinion, you are learning something brand new every single day about the landscape, about the animals, about your clients, about how to deal with clients, about, you know, you're being aware and observant enough that you're picking up on things, and so there's constantly surprises, right? Like just learning and watching these different things from the natural world, for sure. From the humans, it's I don't know. I mean, I don't know if surprise is the right word, or dumbfounded. Yeah, you know, so
always learning.
Yeah. It's like I see things happen. It's just like, holy smokes, people are doing that, huh?
Yeah. I want to ask you about the other things you're a part of, but before I do, so if anyone wants to look you up or find you, what's your website? What's the best place to find you?
It's Yellowstone Wildlife Guide Company.com.
Okay.
Head straight to my website. Everything you need's on there. Social media is the same.
Cool. Very cool. And what's some of the other stuff, the bears, you do stuff with bears.
I run a nonprofit called Bear Awareness Gardiner, which is going through a little bit of growth and rebranding, with the goal to keep humans and bears from killing each other.
Yeah.
And so that could mean a lot of different things. In the town of Gardiner specifically, it means getting our trash infrastructure updated and in place with bear-proof things like dumpsters, trash cans, electric fencing. You know, those are the main bits of it. But then we also run a fruit gleaning program every fall, trying to get the apples and pears out of people's trees. We have an electric fencing loan out program, so if you have some sort of attractant that needs protecting, we can provide that and help you get that secured. A lot of education and outreach, right? Just talking to people, getting people on board, and I think last year we gave out about 150 cans of bear spray, which are just like, I'd rather have them in people's hands going out into bear country than sitting on a shelf somewhere. So.
Yeah, and in my industry, I've noticed so many people buy them when they come here, but they can't take them with them. So I have so many recycled ones, and that's why I tell people they can have them, because I have way more than I need.
Yep, and that's where I get the majority of mine. I have a handful of businesses around. The Montana Grizzly Encounter they get a lot as people come back to the airport, and they stop in there and they drop them off. So they've given me quite a few cans, and then I weigh them, because if you're going to give them out, you have to make sure that they haven't been used or they're not empty. So I have all the spec sheets from the manufacturers, how much they're supposed to weigh, and I go through all that tedious and write on them. But then I'm able to turn around and hand them back out.
Do they have? Is there drops for those around the area?
You know, there's one at the airport. There's definitely one at the airport, and I think there's one other in Bozeman. But no, it's something we're kind of lacking on around here, and something I'm working on getting into down in Gardiner and Paradise Valley.
Yeah, I wonder if I guess if people are renting cars from the airport, maybe they can drop them off at the airport, because I know that's where a lot of people have them, is when they rent cars.
Yep, and the airport is. I don't know what they're doing with theirs. It's tough. There is a way to make money on that system.
Oh yeah.
In turning them over, and so as a nonprofit, I'm kind of competing with like, hey, can I have those? Versus a business who's like, no, we're going to turn a profit on it. But I do have a fairly decent network to turn them back over and get them back out on the landscape.
What's the local population in Gardiner?
It's about 800.
Okay. Do you know how many? Do they record numbers on how many people come through there in a season?
They do. They used to, anyways. I want to say last year we were just shy of 1 million.
And is it what's the biggest bear issue with? Is it with the people that are traveling through?
Yeah. So, if you walk around the town of Gardiner and ask that same question, everybody's going to blame the tourists.
Yep.
Here's the analogy that I like to remind people of. Yellowstone Park is 2.2 million acres. They saw 4.5 million visitors last year. Mm-hmm. They have an incredible number of grizzly bears, and they average between 2 and 4 bear conflicts a year.
Okay.
Last year in the town of Gardiner, 800 people, a little under 1 million visitors came through the town. We had over 100 bear conflicts.
Wow.
So how is it that Yellowstone Park is able to manage all of those visitors and all that crazy behavior we see on tour runs of Yellowstone?
Yep.
And they get away with almost no conflicts? Well, the short answer is they don't give those tourists any options other than bear proof.
Yeah.
When you go in Yellowstone Park, every trash can, every dumpster, everything is a bear proof piece of equipment. When you come into Gardiner, now you've got businesses and private land and public lands, and you've got all this mix, and there is no one agency that can just dictate, like, hey, you all have to do this. Gardiner's unincorporated. We don't have a municipal government, so we can't have ordinances. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a free-for-all. I'm a firm believer that, like, us as residents of Gardiner need to do what's right, and part of that is not giving our tourists that we all make money off from the opportunity to do something that's not bear proof.
Yeah, that makes complete sense.
So you got to supply the infrastructure, you got to educate them, and you got to make sure they're doing it. You got to hold them to it. Yellowstone Park does a great job of it, and I think the town of Gardiner could do a lot better. And we're getting there. We've made some really, really big changes in the last several years, but we still have a ways to go.
I wonder do you know much how Big Sky navigates that?
Frustratingly.
Yeah, because I know they do have a lot of bear proof trash. Mm-hmm. At least most of the businesses, but they're probably in a similar situation because that's not an established township either.
Right, and they're also having a ton of conflicts.
Yeah.
Yep. So Gardiner and Big Sky, it's maybe the only way those two places are similar. Yeah. But yeah, for a lot of the same reasons, they have a lot of the same issues.
That makes sense. Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I can understand why you're doing it, because I can see where that'd be a huge issue.
Yeah, and it's, at the end of the day, like, there's a lot of passionate feelings around grizzly bears, right? A lot of people love them, some people hate them, some people are fascinated, some people are scared to death. Like, they're a charismatic megafauna. They're going to evoke strong emotions. The reality is the work I'm trying to do, it's a public safety issue.
Yep.
Having a heavily habituated bear, like the one we had last summer walking around town, who was 600 pounds, and he's trash habituated. We got really, really lucky last summer that nobody got hurt. Really lucky. And I think it speaks to the bear, because the opportunity was there and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And I think, the agencies, the management agencies, the FWP and even the Park Service responded to some of that. Like, I think they did a good job. They did as best they could. They worked their tails off trying to get him, but at the end of the day, we just got lucky. What
percentage of those are grizzlies?
Almost all of them. We almost never. I mean, we last year I think we had 1 or 2 black bears come through town. The one that I saw, the poor guy, I think he tried to swim the river at high water, got flushed down. By the time he hit the bank, he was right in the middle of town.
Oh, wow.
And he was running around just trying to find the quickest route out, Yeah. But we have, I think, and I don't know, some of the biologists might disagree with me on this, but I think we have so many grizzly bears that use the Gardiner Basin, the black bear density is super low.
Yeah, that could make sense.
Yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot of black bear activity. I mean, they're around, they're in the forest for sure, but like, they're not really in town ever.
Yeah, the whole concept, like we train the bears. It's like those bears in Gardiner are trained by the way they're trained. But like the tolerance is set really by us.
Yeah, it's very much a human issue, right? I find bears, they're wild animals and they can be dangerous, all the different things. I find them to be, at least when it comes to this issue, a lot more predictable than the humans. Like, if you leave something out, they're going to find it and they're going to get into it.
Yeah.
Kind of period. Their lives are driven by food, making new bears and trying to get fat to hibernate. Like, that's essentially what they're doing. And when you look at it through that lens, it gets really simple. On what do we need to bear proof? Well, you got to get it behind electric fencing or get it in some sort of steel container, or But the humans, as I do this work, there's a lot of interfacing with the community and with the public, and the range in the conversations that I have between people who want to donate money and help and time and let me do this for you, let me do that, how can I be the most helpful, which is great, to last year I showed up to responding to a conflict, people who needed some trash infrastructure, obviously. And the very first sentence, I wasn't even out of my truck, was, are they going to come kill this bear or what?
Oh, really? Yeah.
Because it had turned over a bunch of trash bags that were not in a trash can. And it's like, well,
Yeah, no, that's tough. Should they come kill the bear? Or what do you?
I mean, ultimately they did. But I just view it as like that is completely avoidable.
Yeah.
Right. And the kicker for me, and this is where wild livelihood starts to tie in here, is the kicker for me is that the owner, the business owner, and I won't say his name, but the business owner who said that to me runs a tourism business. And his tourism business benefits from the never-ending flow of tourists that we have that come through Gardiner. And that flow of tourists is there for a small list of things, right?
Yeah. Bears being one of them for sure.
Wolves, Old Faithful, Grand Prismatic, right? These are the things that these tourists are coming for. His particular business is just, it's like infrastructure to help people do those things.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily those things. And I think, part of Wild Livelihood's mantra and our beliefs are that, like, if we want our businesses to keep working, then we need to see that connection. Like, my business only works if that bear still exists to show someone.
Yeah.
Right? That's what people are coming here for. You take the grizzly bears out of Yellowstone and, we're just like, I don't know, any other state in the West.
Yeah, I mean, if it's just some big city, like, that has no animals, people are, like, the whole reason people are coming here to support your business is
exactly
evaporated.
And coming here in record numbers.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, yeah, some people go there. And it's an incredible amount of tourism dollars that are spent in the GYE.
Yeah. I think Wild Livelihoods it's a great, like, it makes complete sense that if you're going to have a business here and this business is sustained because of this, everything that
the resource.
Yeah.
These incredible resources that we have around us. And, when I'm guiding or just like meeting people from around, like, you constantly run into people who are here to visit, right? And they've got this vacation planned. And they make mention of how incredible, how special, how incredible, how amazing their trip was, or what they're really looking forward to. Or, like for me, I have a lot of clients who come 2 or 3 times a year. They fly in from wherever and they're coming here to see Yellowstone. And I can totally see how when you live here and you experience it every day, you can kind of, I don't want to say forget about it, but take it for granted. No, this place is different. Yeah. It's different than a lot of other places, and that's worth protecting, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's tough too because like there's so much freedom here too. But then like if there's too many like if there's too much freedom and there's too many people, like it's chaos.
Yeah, and that's part of what makes it special.
Yeah.
Right. You know, I hosted a event for Wild Livelihoods a few weeks ago down in Gardiner, and it was a bit of a community conversation about what's going on, what's happening with our businesses, what are our concerns, what keeps us up at night, and then honestly, like, I just wanted to hear from the community. What are your thoughts? Like, let's just lay it out there, and with the understanding we're not going to come to a solution to this today, but let's start the conversation. And one of the things that is constantly rattling around in my head, and I think a lot of other business owners' heads, are what is our upper limit on what we can sustain here for tourist numbers?
Yeah.
Right. And especially in Yellowstone Park, but you know, by proxy, the gateway communities, the airport, you know, all these different things. And does anybody have a grasp on that? And what is our appetite for it? You know? Which is it's a dangerous conversation to lead as a tourism business operator, right? We're literally talking about where our money comes from. These are our revenue streams, but I think it is an important conversation to have, you know, like.
Yeah, it's a nuanced conversation for sure.
It's tricky.
Yeah,
it's really tricky. And I will be the first one to claim I don't have the answers to it.
Yeah.
But I will stick to my guns, and it's really important that we talk about it, and we push ourselves into those difficult conversations, because if we don't, we're gonna find out what our limit is, and it's not gonna be fun. It's gonna be forced upon us, not dictated by us.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, hopefully if you get enough intelligent minds together and enough perspective, maybe there's a way to approach it.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's. You know, we are fortunate a little bit in that, especially with the national park, right? So we've got this agency who is the heartbeat of this tourism economy, and the National Park Service has dealt with this same issue in other places, right? Zion Park and Arches and Sequoia, Kings Canyon, you know, Yosemite. Those other parks are already experiencing like too many people, not enough infrastructure, damaging the resources, not sustainable. How do we, you know, deal with this? And so we've got an agency in the center of it all that has some experience dealing with that. And I have a lot of faith in our superintendent that he'll do what's best for the park, with the businesses in mind. But it can't, I think what we have to be careful of is that it can't become this like unspeakable problem, right? Like we can't sweep it under the rug. We can't just ignore it. And so anything we can do to like bring it up in an open-minded and, you know, productive way is good.
Yeah, I could see why people would want to avoid it because it can be uncomfortable. And
it's so easy to sweep under the rug.
Every time I talk to somebody about it, they throw a new perspective in, and I'm like, you know, I didn't think about that. And there's a lot of different angles and ways to think about it.
There are, yeah. And there's some really, really great people around, right? There's super intelligent people. There's problem solvers, community builders. We're in a good place to figure this out. We just have to do it. It means you still got to do the work to do it. And if we all sit back and wait for somebody else to figure it out, like, I mean, it's democracy in action, right? Then you can't be upset when the final product is not what you would have chosen.
I try to look at the way we manage, you know, wildlife hunting, and the way there's a limited amount of tags that are handed out. And I think like it seems like we do a pretty good job managing it. We don't kill too many animals, but we manage them so they don't get. There's not too many.
Yep.
And we don't, you don't legally sell game meat, so we don't make a business out of it.
Yeah, the North American model.
Yeah, so there's definitely ways to do it, but it's like, man, it would suck at the same time to not feel like Montana anymore. No freedom. Nope, you got to fill out 20 pages of paperwork and
Yeah, and there's a middle ground there, you know. And I've been the biggest, the loudest mouth on like the first time I try to go on my public lands. And somebody says to me, no, you don't have a permit. You can't go on your public lands today.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going.
Yeah.
I'm going, you know. which is very hypocritical of me, right? Like that's not necessarily fair, and also I recognize firsthand why that's not sustainable.
Yeah.
So yeah, how do you manage that and all the different stakeholders and interests? It'll be interesting.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how it keeps evolving, and I'd love to be part of the conversation as much as I can, and at least talk to other people about it. And
I think that's such a huge part of it is just being involved,
Yeah.
right? Figuring out where these conversations are happening, who's having them, who's leading them, who's a part of them, and making sure you're in that room for those conversations. Because everybody's perspective is valid. There are no perspectives here that aren't valid, and so we just need to make sure that everybody understands the importance of being a part of that conversation.
Yeah, and like this could go in a whole nother tangent too. But I had mentioned to Kara, who we both know. You look at Los Angeles, California, and it's so expensive, it's so overpopulated, and this is just my thought, and I haven't. This is I'm kind of thinking off the cuff right now, but you see a place that grew so fast and has so many people and became so expensive, and you think like, okay, so we're, especially in Bozeman, like we're watching that happen again. And like, do we just, as humans, keep repeating ourselves? And like, we got to learn the same mistake.
Yeah.
Because you think we could look at that and say, hey, well, that didn't turn out so well.
So here's the kicker. This is how I would respond to that. I lived in LA for 10 years.
Okay.
So I get it. Personally, I love LA, but that's a whole nother story. What are its redeeming qualities? It's expensive. It's grown. Well, there's incredible industry there. It's 72 and sunny every day. They've got amazing beaches, right? So they've got their own redeeming qualities. What is it that's drawing people to Bozeman so quickly, so heavily, in such a rush, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's because, it's the old saying, the best thing about Bozeman, it's only 15 minutes from Montana.
Yeah.
You can drive 15 minutes in any cardinal direction, and you're in the mountains. And not just like, oh yeah, these are pretty mountains. There's elk, and there's bears, and there's birds, and like proper, and there's trout in the rivers, and I think with this like rampant growth that's going on in Bozeman, what are the effects on those mountains and those animals and those rivers, right, and that water source? And if we don't take care of those things by stemming some of this growth, is it really that special if those things go away?
Yeah, it definitely will lose its lust, like if it isn't already, because
And I think I've lived in Montana for 10 years. I know probably people listening to this who have lived here their whole lives would be the first ones to tell you it already has lost that shine.
Or 20 years ago.
It lost it 20 years ago, right? And that may be true for the Gallatin Valley. But I just this past weekend, I'm not going to say where I was, but I was outside of the more developed areas of Montana, and every bit of sparkle was still very much there, right? And we were a long ways from the Gallatin Valley.
Yeah.
So
that's half the reason you got to be up, like you were saying in the beginning, at 3 o'clock to go see stuff.
Yeah. But then again, like, I'm sure where I wasn't a secret, and how many more people, myself included, can that place take before it starts to lose that sparkle?
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's a it's a depressing conversation.
Yeah.
It's like but it's not going to do us any good not to acknowledge it.
Yeah, and you never know. Sometimes creative minds get together on ideas and they come up with some creative solutions.
For sure. And I think a big part of it is cultural shifts, right? The COVID, I think, had a huge change on where people want to live and what people prioritize in their day-to-day life, and being closer to nature, being in the outdoors, clean air, next to the mountains, all those things became a priority. And so we've seen that little bubble there. And it could all shift again.
Yeah. I mean, it's so ironic because, people will leave that populated area, not just LA, but it gets the most grief for sure.
Sure.
Come to Bozeman because it's not populated. Then people are leaving Bozeman because they're like, this is too crazy, right. And everybody's got their
right. It's this weird form of like rural gentrification of beautiful places.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know the answer, but I'm glad that that you've gotten involved with this, and I'm glad to be having the conversation with you.
Yeah, yeah, it's a big one. I kind of touched on our business survey that Wild Livelihoods did this past summer, and we sent it out with the hopes to hear from businesses what keeps us up at night. And the two key takeaways from that, one was sustainability of natural resources, and whether that meant overcrowding, loss of habitat fragmentation, and then in a big way, FWP management and the involvement in politics in wildlife resource management. So that was kind of one side, and we put that in one bucket. And then the other one was all about housing.
Yeah.
It was the cost of living, the cost to house your guides, what you have to pay your guides so they can afford to live here, and the other bucket was just all about housing. And those two topics are very different, right? Sustainability of resources and cost of housing and housing availability. But when you start sorting them out and kind of digging through the details on them, you actually find they're rooted in pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, and a big one here that I hear a little bit about, but it seems like I don't know if people avoid it or I just haven't talked to the right people, is water. Because water is a huge issue in Gallatin County and Big Sky.
Yeah. And Park County as well, water it's a big deal. And there are some uncomfortable truths that I think we all need to be playing with the same set of facts, right? Like if we're going to have a productive conversation about water issues, we need to all understand what the baseline truth is. And the truth is that water and moisture content on the landscape is trending in a very, very poor way.
Yeah. Less
and less per year. It's coming out quicker. It's not sitting in the ground. All these things, like the big flood we had in 2022. We had what ended up being a decent moisture year just completely dumped out in about 72 hours.
Yeah.
And what is that same year, all this flood and destruction and craziness, by August, we were having crazy low flows and hoot owl restrictions and, so it's definitely a conversation. You're right. It's not probably as high up on the ledger as it should be. But.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people that want to build massive infrastructure here with kind of no idea where the water's going to come from and how we're going to sustain it.
Right.
And that's definitely a Gallatin County specific issue because there's a lot of building going on.
Yeah, no, totally. And it's interesting too, because it's, if you step outside right now, May, whatever day it is, everything's green and lush and beautiful and plants and flowers, everything's popping. I think a lot of people have a very romantic picture of Montana, and that picture was probably taken in May.
Yeah. It's so green.
Yeah.
You come back in August.
Yeah. I hope you like golden brown.
Yeah, as I tell people, if they ask me what's the best time or the prettiest time, I'm like, well, definitely like May, June.
May and June.
You come late July, August, and it's getting pretty brown pretty fast.
Brown and dusty, right? Dust clouds blowing in and,
smoke and fires.
Yeah, totally. So, yeah, I don't know. The water one there's some great local nonprofits that do work around water, just kind of generally all things water, and specifically on the Yellowstone River. So I only have so many bites of pie I can take.
Let's list off one more time your Yellowstone Wildlife
Guide Company.
Okay, and then the Bears Foundation
is Bear Awareness Gardiner.
Okay, and Wild Livelihoods.
And
any of those can be found on Google.
Yeah, Google any of them.
Cool. If you give me links, I'll put them in this description when it comes out.
Yeah, I can totally do that. Send you links to all of them.
If anyone wants to get involved, I mean, how can they help? And do they reach out to you? Do they?
Yeah, myself or Kara, who I think has also been on. Reach out to either of us. There's a million things to work on. Wild Livelihoods we have a ton of momentum right now. And it's growing, and we're getting a lot of great feedback from a lot of folks. And so we are always looking for anybody who might want to take on a project. It's all kind of project based on volunteer time. So something you're really, really passionate about, an issue that you think the business community should be involved in helping solve, reach out. We would love to work with you.
Yeah, I'll get this out, and hopefully people hear it and have something positive to contribute.
Yeah, and they can reach out if they just want to chat about any of those things as well.
Cool. Thanks, Evan. Appreciate
Excellent.
it.
Yeah, thank you very much.